Hey yo, what's going on, Accelerators organization? Good morning. Get these questions up here. Hope everyone's having a good last month of the year, finishing the year strong. This is when you can really make some strides on your business. We've been crushing it, doing tons of tax plan meetings, which is always fun. You save people money, they get excited about working with you. All right, so let's get some questions going here. Okay. Kyle Elder, when hiring, how do I determine if I should pay salary versus hourly? I have a small athletic training facility. Working at previous gyms and hiring trainers at previous gyms, I've come to find it is tough to keep people who are good at what they do around long enough to build a team when they are getting a few hours here and there at the beginning. Would supplementing their pay with front desk, cleaning, etc., be the way to keep them? And what are pros and cons to salary versus hourly structure? Um, so so it sounds to me like the question you're actually asking isn't salary versus hourly. It's actually more, how do I keep good people? And in my experience, yes, you've got to pay them a certain amount to get basically enough to take money off the table. Then it's more about how are you building an amazing culture to keep them around and keep them inspired to stay with you. I would hesitate to say that that's a difference between if they're making salary versus hourly. Um, so two questions here is number one, how do you get them to the point where you can justify paying them enough to keep them around? And so I like that you're thinking, can you supplement their pay with front desk cleaning, etc. Um, and then if these are um, personal trainers and you're paying them basically based on a function of how they can get personal training clients, then to me, loyalty comes from education and from training. So, how can you train them to get clients better, to get their pay up better? So, if you can constantly train them and train them on how to sell, how to develop a relationship, how to build a pipeline, then number one, you're equipping them with skills and tools that they're going to retain no matter where they go. So that's going to help them be more inclined to want to work for you. And then you're getting them to the point where you can justify paying them a full wage faster because you're giving them skills. So I would focus on how can you do that? How can you build things in your culture that can educate them, train them, and inspire them to stick around? Um, and then from there, if you're looking at salary versus hourly, maybe instead of it's a salary versus hourly, pay them on an outcome. So um, if if they can get X number of clients for personal training, and then they also pay, do 4 hours at the front desk, maybe the front desk is hourly, and then the training clients is salary. Um, but as far as pros and cons versus salary versus hourly, specifically to answer that question, really the benefits of hourly is you pay them for work that gets done. So literally, if they're on the clock, they're getting paid. So you're not paying for, basically, if you don't have the work for them, then you send them home and you don't have to pay them for that. So that's the benefit to you. The benefit to them on an hourly side of things is if they go work and grind a ton of hours, then they're going to get paid overtime. On the salary side of thing, the benefit to you is you have if you pay them $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month salary, you can predict, exactly how much money is going out. The downside to you is if they work less, then you're paying them more money for working less. Now, if they work more, then they're still on a fixed salary, you don't have to pay them more for that. So it's a predictable expense to you if they're on a salary versus an hourly. So that's really the two differentiating factors there. But I would look more on how can you build a culture that makes them want to stay, and then set targets to get them to a place where you can afford to pay them, and maybe supplement them with a fixed fee for doing some cleaning and front desk stuff along the way. All right. Eric Blandino. Question. What are great ideas to recognize team members for their work and also incentivize them to go above and beyond for the business when needed? Description and background. We are a rat exclusion service in the business of giving people their homes back from the invasion of rats. Our field techs do the work, clock in and clock out. We have given gift cards, certificates of acknowledgement, and even plane tickets. None of these seem to be appreciated or motivating enough for them to do great work or go above and beyond for our clients and business when needed. Elevator pitch, rat exclusion service offers poison-free solutions to rat and mice problems. We figure out the entry points of rats and mice into your home or structure, seal them out, and guarantee our work for 2 years. Love it. So, what it sounds like to me is you're giving incentives based on what you would want, not what they would want custom to their specific person. So, I heard this from a gal named Jessie Lee, I think it was. She runs a 8-figure network marketing company. And what she does, and we're implementing this in my company right now, is it's easy when you're small. It's harder as you grow. So you want to have this system in place now. She has what she calls her my favorite things list. And so in her employee onboarding, her new team member onboarding, she has everyone fill out a Google sheet. It's literally just a Google form that has their shirt size, their favorite color, their favorite restaurant, their favorite activity, what their personal interests are. Basically a few things that then gives her on the back end when someone does something very well. Give them a gift card or a certificate or whatever that looks like in their interest. So maybe they love going to concerts. So instead of giving them plane tickets because they're scared of flying, you give them a concert ticket to their favorite artist when they're coming into town. Maybe they don't care about gift cards. They don't care about more money. They just want recognition. So then recognition for some people is worth more than a $2,000 bonus to them. And so it's about figuring out what they want and getting to know your team members so that you're giving something as acknowledgement that is meaningful to them. I love that you're thinking about this. And I think just taking it that next step further where it's bespoke, it's custom to them. That way they feel heard, they feel seen, and they feel like you truly know what their dreams and their interests and passions are. So that favorite things list, I would really look at doing that so that you can customize those. We do that with our clients too. We'll send custom wow packages where we kind of do some digging on social media, see what they're interested in, and then send them a package custom if it's a thank you for a referral or a welcome to the firm gift. Then that is something that you can make it custom to them. That's going to be a lot more meaningful than just giving them plane tickets. So that's where I would start with that. Got my cold brew here. Sheree Duong, question. Should my extra money go to savings or debt? Background is I currently don't have a business and work in corporate America with one second job and go to school. I do currently have debt and am trying to cash flow school as much as I can. I will have to borrow to cover next semester. I'm curious, where should my focus be with any extra funds? I do know of the Dave Ramsey baby steps. Should I be following those steps? It's a tough question to answer blanket. I do like the concept of what Dave Ramsey says with the baby steps of having a cushion for an emergency fund and then plowing money into debt. Where I look at is in terms of paying off debt or putting money elsewhere is what are you going to do with that money? And that's true across the board, whether you're following the baby steps or in business or in your personal life. And so if the money's if you have a cushion and you have that emergency fund set aside so that you know you're going to be able to keep your lights on if something bad happens, then that's where I would put the money first. Next, I'd look at what are you doing with that money and what is your debt interest costing you. So like for me, I have student loans still that I'm paying off, and they're 6.75% interest. I still pay the minimum payment on those because if I plow money into student loans, then I'm basically getting an interest on my return on my investment of 6.75%. It's a guaranteed return on my investment, but it's still a form of getting a return on my investment. Right now, my business is growing a lot faster than that. So if I can invest in my business, in a new team member, or in more Instagram ads, or something that's in my business that's going to give me a return that's much higher than that 6.75% interest, then I'm doing that all day long. If I'm putting it in cash and I've got, way too much money in cash, then I can, that it's literally sitting and doing nothing, then I'd probably rather have you pay off debt for that. So to me, I want to look at what are you doing with that money instead. And if it's going to earn more than you would be paying off or paying an interest in debt, then don't pay off the debt. If it's just sitting in savings and you've already got a cushion and you're not running a red line on your life, then I'd probably look at taking that extra money and paying off debt. So I hope that gives you a decision-making process there. All right, Shelly Merrill. What is the importance and how do I go about building a dashboard to track important numbers? Business description and background, a fire protection contractor. I have heard many successful business people say, build a tracking dashboard to track key elements. My question is, how? What is the best way to pull information from multiple databases? Is there software for that? Excel spreadsheets? Can it be automated or is it done manually? Curious to hear all the mentors' ideas. So what we use for our clients when we set up financial dashboards with them is we use a program called Fathom. FathomHQ.com if you're interested in looking at that. And that actually Intuit, who owns QuickBooks, bought Fathom a couple years ago. So you can, if you use QuickBooks for doing your monthly accounting, you can link up your Fathom and it'll actually update it in real time as you update your books. And so to me, that's the easiest way to set up a dashboard and use that. Why it's important is if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. And so if I can't tell you how many business owners I've worked with where when we start setting up their financial dashboards for them that they've been in business for 10, 15 years, they go, man, if I would have done this back at the beginning of my business, I wouldn't have thrown away thousands of dollars over the years in just wasting money and just spending it because you're not being intentional about it. And so that's the importance of setting up a dashboard. To answer the why question, is it helps you be intentional with your finances in your business and helps you make decisions based on actual metrics and actual numbers rather than just managing by bank balance of I log in this morning and if I've got money in my account, then I spend it. So that's the importance of it. And then the how is go look at Fathom, especially if you use QuickBooks for your business, for your books. And that's going to be the best way, easiest way to set that up. You just link your QuickBooks and then it updates it in real time. And if you need help and you can't figure that out, then just reach out to my office and we can help you with that process if that is something that you want help with and just taken off of your hands so that you know it's done the right way. Joshua Grant. Question, what is the benefit or purpose for sending a 1099 and W-2? Business description and background. I'm a welding and fabrication business with 2 team members. As of right now, I give them a check for their hours worked on Friday. At the end of the year, I give them a 1099. What's the benefit of switching to putting them on a W-2 tax form rather than keeping them on a 1099? So there's not really a benefit. The purpose is if they're actually a W-2, then meaning you set their hours and they're actually an employee, then the IRS requires you to pay them as a W-2 and withhold half of their payroll taxes. So really the benefit on the employee side is when you're a 1099, you are required to pay the 15% self-employment tax on all that income. When you switch them to a W-2, you as the business owner withhold half of that 15%, which becomes payroll taxes. And so it saves who you're paying 7.5%. Now it costs you 7.5% to put them on W-2. So really the differentiating factor here is if they're truly under your control and they are your employee, or you're setting their schedule, you're making them do certain activities, and they are your employee, then you're legally required to put them on a W-2. And so that's kind of the differentiating factor there. It's going to cost you an extra, call it 8 to 11% in extra payroll taxes to do that. So just keep that in mind when you're doing that. But if they are your employee, then you have to do that. Jenny Dawson. What's the difference between cash and accrual accounting? I lead yin yoga and sound healing events, classes, and training trainings partnering with various businesses, organizations, and yoga studios. On occasion, I handle registrations and collect funds, but more often than not, ticket sales are managed on their side and I am paid at a later date, which is usually the following month. Ticket prices are different for general admission versus member discounted rates, and we split the revenue based on profit share, which ranges from 70-30 to 60-40. I do not see the numbers until I receive the recap, which includes details such as number of participants, ticket price, totals, etc. at the time of payment. Payments for weekly classes come at a different time than monthly events, and the same goes for trainings. Soon I will reopen my Spotify store to sell instruments. I'm assuming that means Shopify store. To sell instruments and yoga props. I will start selling my online yoga classes and trainings via Vimeo video library. I'm feeling confused on how to track revenue weekly with monthly coming in from different places at different times. Can you please provide guidance on how to track weekly revenue? Maybe if I understand the difference between cash and accrual accounting, that will help. Thank you so much, Jenny. So the big difference, so I'll explain the difference and then I'll explain how you should do that, what you should do from a tracking and managing standpoint. So the big difference between cash and accrual accounting is cash basis accounting means you recognize the income when you receive the check, and you recognize the expense when you cut the check, so when you pay the money. On the accrual method of accounting, you recognize the income when you earn the income, meaning when you send the invoice, whether you collect the money or not. And you recognize the expense when you receive the bill, whether you pay the money or not. So usually cash method is what we see when we're doing your tax return, and you want to be on a cash basis method. Otherwise, if you send an invoice for $100,000 and you only get paid $5,000, you're still paying tax on that $100,000, even if you didn't receive the money, and that can be very expensive. Accrual method is what you want to actually monitor your managerial numbers from, because you want to see what are you earning and what are you incurring in expenses, even if you don't move the money. And then the other thing, that a key KPI, key performance indicator, a lot of times is your days of sales in accounts receivable or days in sales in accounts payable. And if you're not monitoring your books on the accrual method, then you'll never know if you have accounts payable out there or accounts receivable out there. So if you use QuickBooks, it's really easy to toggle between cash basis and accrual basis. So the importance of monitoring your performance of your books on the accrual method is so you can see what you're actually earning. And then from there, you would look at a cash flow statement to see what's coming in and going out on the cash side of the business. So that's really the difference. If you never track your books on the accrual method and you never see what's going out in terms of income or what's potentially coming in and due for expenses, then you'll just never know. And you won't be able to have a crystal ball in terms of what's coming in the next 30 to 60 to 90 days. So that's the difference there. You can track both side by side as long as you're using the invoicing for sending out your invoices, and then the bill pay feature in your books. Whether that's QuickBooks or Xero or Wave, they all have some sort of tracking feature there. So that's the key difference on accrual versus cash method. Cash method for almost all cases for tax purposes, and then accrual method for actually monitoring the managerial side of your numbers. All right, Yathis Johnson. How do I market and sell an online course? Business description and background. I am a trainer and coach, and I have combined the two to create an online course consisting of some assessments, online coaching forms, and teaching and training. I have never been successful in creating an online product, thus the ask. I need to understand the process, best practices, even pricing. Thanks. So pricing is probably the most difficult piece of that. And really with pricing, it comes down to test. And if they buy, then they buy, and then that's awesome. And then you look at your conversion rates. And if you raise the price up and conversion rate drops too low, then you can go back to your other pricing. So pricing is all about testing and pricing psychology. That's you can do a whole master's program just on pricing. But I was just talking with my marketing agency on this a couple weeks ago, because we're kind of launching our own online tax finance course. And what they were saying is the best and most efficient use of your dollars. And I was talking with another client of mine who's built a very successful online course for coaches, is Facebook ads. That's where if you get good ads, good audiences, good targeting, and Facebook ads is where it is going to be your best bang for your buck in terms of marketing and selling that. Now, if you have a social media presence, you can do it organically by just offering the course there. But Facebook ads and retargeting, and if you don't know what retargeting is, basically what happens is on your landing page, you put in your Facebook pixel, which is a piece of code that you put into the page. And when they go to it, Facebook tags them and then follows them around the internet, and then you send them ads afterwards. And if you're not marketing and using retargeting in your business, then you're wasting ad dollars, is from everything that I understand about Facebook marketing. So that's what I would look at. If you don't know kind of how to do Facebook marketing, talk with an agency who does it. I'm sure there's some people in this group that can help you with that. And I know for a fact there's a few, because they showed up on a couple of the live the live Zoom calls, mentor calls in the last couple months. So that's what I would connect with someone in the group here and have them point you in the right direction on how to get Facebook ads set up. On the Google, I was just chatting with someone about this the other day, and Google ads, they say is great for local, if you're trying to get local business, and you can't beat from an online long distance e-commerce or online course marketing. You cannot beat Facebook and Instagram. It's just it's gotten more expensive than it used to be, but it's still the best, cheapest form of advertising. So looks like we're at the end of the questions. Hope that was helpful. Thank you for all the great questions, and I'll be doing the live Q&A and the Zoom call later today. So it's full Accelerators organization day today, which I love. So thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon. See you next time.